There is something huge and profound I want you to pay attention to that is rising up right now. I want to take you back to the late 1800s in Tsar Russia, and we can see a pattern repeating itself as history repeats itself. As Mamdani just won in New York City the mayor electoral vote, he just won to be the new mayor, a Muslim. I've been making videos all the way from even last year, way before that, of things that are going to happen, that's going to occur. And a lot of people don't like what I'm saying. But what I'm here about to say is, let me take you to the late 1800s. Alexander II was assassinated. Who took his place? Alexander III, his son. Who was it blamed on? Let's get that in a minute. There's two parties that are rising up. There was the nationalists, which were reminiscent on the historical times, the old way of lifestyles. They wanted to restore family morals, values, and traditions. Then there's another party. It was the socialists. They are the modern liberals today, okay? And they wanted a new reform type of government. They wanted to bring in immigration. They wanted to support all these things. They wanted to do away with the traditional norms of society, right? So when Alexander II was assassinated, the government used intelligence psyop to get people to focus on a group of people. So it would take the focus off their own error in government that is causing the financial issues and the financial strains and the financial burdens on society and all the collapse of their own mishandling of government rules, laws, and regulations. So pay attention to what I'm saying. They got people focused on a group of people after assassination of Alexander II. Who they blame? The Jews. So that the revolutionaries who were part of the nationalist movement would side with the government so that they not rise up against the government, overthrow them, but focus on a group of people so that they could change the government, get time to change the government to bring in a new form of government. Do you see where I'm going? What do you think the czars were? They were in the nationalists. They were a far right group and people who wanted to change. They wanted to do away with everything that we're seeing right now in society that was going on in Russia during those times. So what happened? They separated the Jews into pale territories, P-A-L-E, and they could only live there. They could only work there. There's a certain limitation of how many could live in a certain town or city. And they limited it to 5% for doctors, skilled artisans, pharmacists, all those things. They limited it to 5% for Jews, okay? Get where I'm going when it comes to what's going to happen to whites in the future and Christians. Those that, unless you side with the Catholics and the Orthodox, that's what the ones that were pushing, getting people to focus on the Jews were the problem so that you would not rise against the government. Do you see what I'm saying? They got you to focus on that so that you would not rise. So what happened when they kicked the Jews out? When Jews started leaving, it came down to in the early 1900s, over 75,000 left Russia. Went to places in America. They went to Argentina. They went everywhere. What started happening? The economy started collapsing even more. And then they got more mad, started blaming Jews. They set this up. The nationalists, the revolutionaries rose up. The revolutionaries were the Nationalist Party. And they were attacking Jews, continue to kill them, continue to attack them. And the socialists are right there with them, joining hands, and they're joining hands against them to attack them. That's what's coming to Jews and Christians in the future if you don't pay attention. So when they started leaving, they gave an order. The government of Russia gave an order to get them to re-immigrate back. Forced it. So that countries started rejecting permanent citizenship or permanent residency of all Jews, right? Because they seen an era that society was declining even more. The political and economic system was collapsing even more. So they had to get them back. And the people, instead of blaming the government and focusing on the government and the people that are actually pushing it, which were actually the Catholics and the Muslims, right? What happened? What happened? People continued to be distracted and blame the Jews until a new form of government came in and capitalized and oppressed them even more. Who ended up winning? The communist socialists. And it completely oppressed the people even more. And unfortunately, the intelligentsia of those times were predominantly the Jews, right? As it was some others, right? But now they're going to replace it with AI. AI ultimately will not last long, but it will be used as a tool to oppress people. The same way the leadership of like Trump right now is using it to track illegal immigrants, to track these people with facial recognition technology and artificial intelligence. They're putting you into a system, preparing for a total slave state that is going to come while people are focused on Jews. Mamdani winning, Netanyahu. Mamdani winning, the Jews. Yes, there's some liberal Jews out there that definitely did vote for him. We don't support that, right? Anybody liberal we do not support. But we do not support the nationalists because they do not have God in it. They use Jesus for a movement, like carrying a cross ready to go for a crusade. That's great and all, but you don't have Jesus in it. You're not serving him with all your heart, soul, and mind. And as I said in Deuteronomy, God warned, if you turn away from him, he'll cause your enemies to rise higher, and you will not know what's happening. You'll continuously lose. They'll rise higher, you'll grow lower. They'll take your money, and you won't even know what's happening because he'll cause you to be confused. So, just like in the old times in Russia, the government was focused on making money and getting rich and taking more from the people, while the people were focused on trying to restore things, the chaos that was happening in society, which were the nationalists. The nationalists ended up losing. And the government, a new form of government came in and controlled the whole entire society while everybody was mad because, all this immorality and stuff is going on in society. Even after the Jews left, even after the Jews had no power, the government still had power. The same things occurred, and in fact, it got worse for the people. It got worse for society. It declined even more. So they could no longer blame the Jews, but they still did. They're blaming the Jews, even from afar, saying they're working a psyop from afar. They had no control over anything. The government wanted them killed. They got people to focus on them. The pogroms were happening. The government turned a blind eye in Russia. So it didn't matter whether Jews were liberal or conservative back then, right? That were considered that. They blamed them all. So you're going to see the same thing happening. I said that people would rise in America because they're, instead of turning back to God, they're focused on money, focused on gain. What do you think is being spoken right now? Everything that's going on in New York, the only ones speaking out are mad because there's going to be higher taxes. That's what the government did in Russia. That's what the people, the Nationalist Party, did in Russia. While they're focused on thinking they're going to restore things. Again, still blaming the Jews. Instead of repenting, turning to Jesus with our heart, soul, and mind, getting rid of their idols called money, and turning to God and serving him with all their heart, soul, and mind, and crying out to him. No, they're crying out to a leader and praising them and being manipulated by a psyop. The same thing that's going on in America right now. People are not repenting. They're not turning to Jesus. They're using Jesus as a crusade with a cross to go to war against a people that they don't even know what they're going up to war against. It's like going into war with armor, but not having the sufficient armor and the military weapons to go to fight the enemy. Then you get blindsided. You're going to war because you have mass numbers going with you, but at the end of the day, you lose. The same way with the Crusades. What happened? The Crusaders won some. The Muslims ended up winning. So is it going to be in the future. If people do not return to God and listen, if you follow into the stupid far right that is rising up, just like Hitler did, he blamed the Jews, right? Yes, there was a socialist issue back then. There was a communist issue. There was a liberal issue, but that's besides the fact. Just like the Reichstag fire happened in the burning of the church, they used that to blame the communists, to blame everybody else, get the people riled up. Something's going to happen in the future. They're going to blame certain groups, Christians and Jews. And it will be not just any Christians, it will be the non-Catholics and the non-Orthodox, and it's the people that do not align with what they're pushing. And it's going to be, something's going to rise up heavily against them if we do not turn to God with all our heart, soul, and mind. Pay attention. Just get off of social media. Don't be listening to these idiots that are being funded by the very people that just rose up in New York City blindly, and no one's paying attention.